Oh,
Unmuted.
Yes, and yes. Yes.
Okay, the time is 5:32 and we're ready to begin.
So I'd like to call the meeting at the Moraga-Orinda Fire District to order. And would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
And Director Danziger, we've called the meeting to order. And we're going to go ahead and first start with roll
Roll
call.
call. Oh, okay, sorry.
Director Danziger
here.
and Director Jex was going to be attending remotely, but he is absent
Whole meeting?
for the whole meeting. Director Jorgens,
Here.
Director Romer,
Here. Can you hear me?
confirmed,
Good.
and Director Hassler.
Here.
And now we would do the Pledge of
Can you
Allegiance.
join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 is public comment for closed session items. And we do not have any attendees, and we have not received any written public comment. And so now the time is 5:33 and we will adjourn to closed session.
Thank you.
Microphones have been turned on. Recording has been started. And the time is 7:07.
So we'll call the meeting to order of the Moraga-Orinda Fire District on September 16th. Can we start with a roll call?
Director Danziger.
Here.
Director Hassler.
Here.
Director Jorgens.
Here.
And Director Jex is absent. President Romer.
Here.
And just for the record, President Romer is attending remotely from Illinois. And Director Hassler.
First item of business is we have a proclamation congratulating the town of Moraga.
Before we
Oh.
begin that, we'll go ahead and do the report out
Oh,
of closed
sorry.
session.
Sorry, report out of closed session. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, board members. So we have one item to report out of closed session with respect to closed session item number 3.5, public employee appointment. The board has selected Jeff Isaacs as interim fire chief, subject to negotiation with respect to his contract. That contract has to be approved in closed session, and there's an item later on in your agenda tonight to select an ad hoc committee to conduct that negotiation. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jeff. Yeah.
And so we'll go ahead and open public comment on the report out for closed session action. And we do not have any hands raised or public comment.
Let me just, one small amendment, I should say. That's effective as of January 1 or December 31, I guess, actually. Just to be clear.
Item 6, Town of Moraga 50th Anniversary Proclamation.
Now, we'd like to congratulate the town of Moraga on its 50th year. Tonight, Steve Wolke, the vice mayor of Moraga, is here with us, and we have a proclamation to present. Steve?
Thank you. Congratulations. May I speak for? Please, sure. I know that 3-minute.
Our audio person is double checking.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much for this proclamation congratulating Moraga on its 50th anniversary. You know, Moraga is, our citizens of Moraga, we are quite proud and thankful for our town. They like the whole package of Moraga. And as part of that package is MOFD. And we really appreciate that Moraga with Orinda and working with Orinda, we have our own community fire district. We very much appreciate the support of the staff, firemen, and the board. We appreciate and value that as part of that package related to fire safety is addressing the critical need of fire prevention. And we certainly value, even if sometimes we don't like the message. Thank you so much.
Look forward to the celebration on the 28th of September. And I know MOFD will be participating and maybe some of us will be in the parade.
Exactly. And we're looking to the future working together and to continuing to work together over the next years. Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
Item 7, brief information only reports related to meetings attended by directors at a district expense. None. Questions and informational comments from board members and staff? None. Communications received? None. Fire chief updates.
The communications received, some of those are in the record because they were written early, right?
The communications received are issued in the packet as written public comment, and they will be recognized under the items that have come in or items not on the agenda. Mary, we'll start with the finance report.
Good evening, directors. I have a brief finance report tonight. We'll start with the strike team reimbursement update. For fiscal year 2024, we have an outstanding receivable of $50,576, and we actually just received a $30,000 payment yesterday, so that has gone down to $20,000. Estimated for 2024-2025, we have a receivable of $651,963. No payments have been received yet, so that receivable is outstanding. As I said, we did receive a payment yesterday, and we also received 2 payments on September 13th for fiscal 24 invoices. Fiscal year 25 represents estimated strike team activity to date. It's very recent, so we haven't received the invoices yet from OES, but that's next in the process. Next slide, please. Tunnel East Bay Hills financial update. The project budget for the Tunnel East Bay Hills was $6.3 million. We have invoiced to CAL FIRE through 6/30 of 2024, $2.9 million, and we have received payments from CAL FIRE of $2.2 million. So our outstanding receivable is the second quarter 24 invoice of $641,998. Since then, we have received expenses, but not yet invoiced for $1.5 million. So our total expenses outstanding are $2.2 million. The invoice for the second quarter was submitted to CAL FIRE on July 30th. It has been approved by OES and is just pending payment. The total expenses to date on the Tunnel East Bay Hills grant is $4.5 million, which is 70.96% of the budget. Next slide. Treasury bill update. The district now has $15.1 million invested in treasury bills. The maturities are listed below, and staff will project cash flows to determine the amount of reinvestment available when the treasury bills mature. Next slide. Other items. The fiscal year 24 audit took place the week of August 26th. On September 4th, MOFD paid $518,000 to Motorola for radios that were partially funded by a FEMA grant. MOFD received $414,000 from FEMA on September 10th for that grant. We have contracted with Matrix Consulting to complete a fee study, and work has begun on that fee study. And lastly, an audit committee meeting is scheduled for September 24th at 4 p.m. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Human Resources.
Good evening, directors. Tonight I have a recruitment and employee promotion update. For the recruitment update, the application period continues to be open for the internal battalion chief through October 30th. The examination process will take place in early December. For office specialist fire prevention, a recruitment was opened earlier this month, and we will be hosting interviews next week. Regarding employment changes, an internal recruitment was conducted for the position of deputy fire chief in August. Lucas Lambert, former battalion chief, was promoted on August 26, 24. This resulted in several promotions. So John Bensley promoted to battalion chief from fire captain, Anthony Gavarovic promoted to fire captain from fire engineer, and Thomas Schwedhelm promoted from fire engineer paramedic promoted to fire engineer paramedic 2 from firefighter paramedic. Unless there are any questions, this concludes my HR update.
I'd like to say congratulations to all those promoted. We got new captain back here. Welcome. And we already talked to Lucas, so.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You know, it's rewarding for us on the board. We don't get many opportunities for promotions like, you know, this many promotions at one time. So it's really great that we got to do that.
Fire marshal report.
Good evening, directors. Brief fire marshal report. The staff is working on clearing out last year's inspections. We finished all our first round inspections of our target areas this year. So we're into our second and third inspections, and we're also handling any complaints that we have received. For our e-occupancy inspections, I had Steve, our inspector, go through and do one last go through with the school sites. We created a list of all their open violations. I met last week with the superintendent of the Moraga School District to review the open violations and let them know that a citation with a $100 fine will be coming. And I'm setting up a meeting to meet with the Acalanes High School District for Camp Lindo and the other high school there. Slips my Miramani, I'm sorry. And then also with the Orinda School District to walk them through their violations and just explain the process to them. Then we are pivoting from our e-occupancy inspections to our apartments, our R2s, and back to the dorms at St. Mary's once we're done with the R2s. That concludes my fire. Yes, sir.
Did any schools pass at this point?
No.
Were there any common violations? Like, was there a common theme or?
Yes. The common themes were things they didn't know about that our previous inspection staff wasn't trained up on. One of the items that jumps out at me was the back of the fire extinguisher cards. They have their fire extinguisher service yearly, like they're mandated to do, but on the backside, staff is supposed to sign off on it monthly. They didn't know that. They're working through the process of how they do that and how they check on these items. They're supposed to check on the exit signs, the lighting every 30 days. So they're creating a process for this stuff.
Up next is the Tunnel East Bay Hills Fuel Break Project.
Directors, the fuel break is on schedule, on budget, or under budget right now. Everything's going good. We lose our second crew Friday, October 4th. They are going to a second to another pre-scheduled work site that the company has. Then for October, we will present to the board our glide path out to finish the work this fall and to the winter work into pile burning using Confire Crew 12, and then the expenditures, how we plan to expend the remaining grant dollars will be presented next month to the board. Next slide, Marcia. I just threw some slides in there of where the crews were working. This is work area 4, where we did a lot of work around the perimeter. Most of the work interior is done by grazing. Then we worked around the perimeter of the homes and also reinforcing the fire trails, removing the vegetation and pushing the vegetation off the fire trails to make it safe for the fire apparatus to access. Next slide. And this is the area up behind Canyon, work areas 5 and 6, where the majority of the work has been taking place this summer. Flicker Ridge, which is the pink or the red there, is highly sensitive environmental. We have to have biologists on site every day with our crews. So it's very slow going and eating into the budget significantly, which we anticipated and we knew when we planned the project. So those are the work areas we've been working this summer. That concludes my report on that. Happy to answer any questions the board may have. Yes, sir.
I heard that there's a chance that the state has changed its philosophy on follow-on grants for kind of maintenance of these fire areas that we're getting the grants for the fire breaks. So do we have a plan for applying? We have a number of these we've already done. Do we have a plan for applying for grants to maintain the ones we have?
Yes, the next grant cycle, when it opens up, we'll be applying for a grant. Continuing with the Northern Initiative, feel great. And then give this a couple of years to start some of that regrowth, and then we'll reapply for a maintenance grant on some of these payers.
Great, thank you.
Up next is the Home Hardening Grant Program.
Good evening, directors. I've been asked to give a quick update on our home hardening grant program, specifically about the gutter glove product that we've now started shipping directly to residents. Since the inception of the program in September of 2023, we've issued about 650 grant awards. Those are shown on this map. The gold diamonds that are on the map are from 2023. The red diamonds are from January through May of 2024, and the green diamonds are June through September of 2024. Since we started the ship direct to residents, our workload for the fire prevention staff and the emergency preparedness staff has gone way down. We've had 85 residents apply for grants since we started ship direct. 52 orders have already been filled. And there were 33 new orders that were just sent to Gutter Glove on 9/16. So far in the program, we've spent this year $43,976. We have an open PO with Gutter Glove for $99,500. We're about 44% through that PO. And if the demand stays high, we have the ability to issue another PO and keep the process rolling. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Progress. So what, almost 700 homes?
Yes, very popular.
And how many homes are there total in our community? Like 10,000 or something? 12,000? Okay. So it's a start.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We'll keep working on it. Thank you very much.
Up next is the Station 45 remodel.
Directors, just a brief update. We're still continuing to evaluate construction process options for the selection of architects and contractors to complete the remodel of Station 45. We are working with District Council to finalize contract options that fit the process of our choosing. That is where we stand. We should have more of an update next meeting.
We leave that on. We'll leave it on for next month. Just get out of that.
Operations report.
Good evening, directors. I'll give this month's operations report since our last meeting. Next slide. On August 27th, shortly after 1300 hours, crews from MOFD, Berkeley Fire, CAL FIRE, East Bay Regional Park District, and Contra Costa County Fire all responded to a vegetation fire in the area of Inspiration Point and Wildcat Canyon Road. Upon arrival, crews established incident command and noticed that there was a vegetation fire burning underneath high-tension power lines that you see before you. And reported on-scene conditions were approximately 2 acres. a quick response from our crews, we're able to contain the fire to approximately 4 acres with the use of ground resources and air resources. And you can see the retardant drop that is the kind of pinkish orangish color in front of you. Next slide. I would like to review not only the incident, but I want to walk everybody through what we worked through post-incident. So as a post-incident, we review as an after-action review. So these slides that I'm going to show before you are a series of slides that we review after an incident. This slide I use to show where the incident was located on a larger view and why those agencies that I mentioned were responding to this incident, as it is right in between a number of different communities and then certainly within the state responsibility area. Next slide. And this is an aerial shot taken from Google Maps before the incident, of course. But as you can see, with the assistance of fire trails that were maintained and road that was in place, it helped us to draw a box around this fire and contain the fire to, like I said, just approximately 4 acres. Next slide. This slide is what we use as the ground rules or the foundation of what we review. So, and I want to draw your attention to the end, and that's to correct weaknesses and sustain strengths. So interagency and inter-county, it's important for us to understand the questions that you see there. What was planned? What actually happened? Why did it happen? And what can we do next time? Oftentimes, after we review incidents, we bring that information back as action items, and we do just that, correct weaknesses and sustain strengths so that we can get better as interagency teams. Next slide. This slide is a description of the resources that responded to this incident. So from Contra Costa County, from Berkeley Fire, and then broken out into CAL FIRE responses. As you can see, this is a large response. It's a large response because of the threat area. This is in a state responsibility area. It's also in between jurisdictions and in between county lines. It is, and we are, of course, as you know, we are in a high fire danger time of year, a critical time of year with low humidity in our fuels and fire weather that we were in during that day. Next slide. Again, as we go through the speakers after during the after action report, these are the questions that we're looking to answer, and these are what we base our action items so that we can get better. Next slide. I leave with this slide, and as in our industry, it's important for us to correct weaknesses and sustain strengths. This is just a brief overview of all the work that is put in after an action or after an incident, so that we can work together as a team. This concludes my report. Pending any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this particular fire, you were saying it's kind of was in between Orinda, Oakland, East Bay Regional Park. So who was in charge of this fire? I mean, who was the lead, whatever you want to call it? I don't know what the title is, but who was the chief? I mean.
Yeah, so the incident commander was Battalion 4. This fire occurred on East Bay Mud property within the city of Orinda. And like I mentioned, it is in the SRA or state responsibility area. So it is ultimately CAL FIRE's fire. And when they arrive on scene, the fire is turned over to them, obviously within support of our local government resources.
Did they begin air support for this?
Yes, sir. So that previous slide with all the resources, on there, there's there's tankers, there's helicopters, there's air attack, and that retardant drop that you see before you, that was the product of an air tanker that came in and did make a drop on the incident to help with containment.
Excellent. Bob, thank you.
Thank you.
The whole community thanks you because, we're still here.
And then the upcoming calendar and events for the next 30 days, we have the Moraga Pancake Breakfast and the next Board of Director meeting and the tri-agency meeting on October 21st.
It's not quite 30 days, but for next time, I'm sure it'll be there, but I just want to mention it now so it gets on the record. On November 1st, the city of Orinda and MOFD are co-sponsoring a blood drive. And I've coordinated that blood drive. I've something I've wanted to do for a while in our local community, and it'll be my 100th donation on that day. And so just so it can be on the record, and there'll be information in the newspapers and sent out to try to get people to sign up.
Also have on September 28th, the Town of Moraga 50th Anniversary Celebration Parade. We will now open public comment for announcements. We have one in-person public comment. You can go ahead and state your name for the record.
It's Mark Evans. I just wanted to share that along with MOFD, Julie Sparks and Moraga-Orinda Firewise Network and Moraga-Orinda Fire Safe Moraga-Orinda are partnering for the Pear Festival, doing an outreach. So I don't know if that needs to be up there, but Julie and I have been in contact and we'll support that effort with Julie.
When is the Pear Festival?
Saturday.
Okay, which month?
This month.
Okay. So the last,
When is it? I didn't hear
I
that.
think it should be the last Saturday. Isn't the Pear Festival the last Saturday of September? Steve, the Pear Festival is the last Saturday. Yes, 20th. Yep.
Oh, the same day as.
does it compete with the Town of Moraga Parade or?
It's because the parade's the day,
Oh,
and the Pear
Ah.
Festival.
okay.
There we go.
Aha, okay.
And we do not have any hands raised, and we do not have any more public comment. So public comment is now open for items that are not on the agenda. We did receive 5 written public comments. 4 of them were from Nick Warrenoff, and they were forwarded to the directors and posted on our website. And we received one from Jonathan Goodwin, which was also forwarded to the directors and is available on our website.
Because I saw some other information.
Yes.
So we're saying that these are correspondence or comments?
Written public comments.
Written public.
You just want to speak into the microphone.
Can us as directors comment on these comments?
Yes.
Oh, we can.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And is this the appropriate time to do that?
Marcia, but I think so.
So, I
We
just
do
want,
not have any more hands raised or any other
Oh.
public comment.
gotcha. Okay, well, so Nick Warnoff was talking about the case that the city of Orinda lost having to do with evacuation planning, and so I don't know where that goes from here as far as I don't know if there's any role for MOFD, but I just want to acknowledge that we're aware of it. We're aware of Mr. Warnoff's comments, and I'm sure the fire chief, if asked to weigh in, he will, but this is a city of Orinda item. And then the other one, I just want to acknowledge that we all, I think, received Jonathan Goodwin's comment and well received, and thank you for providing those to us. That's all.
That concludes our public comment. Items, the consent items, 9.1 through 9.6, we'll open public comment. And now, first we'll open public comment and then we'll move to the items. We do not have any hands raised or public comment in person.
I wanted to pull 9.5 and 9.6.
I move that we approve the rest of the consent agenda except for 9.5 and 9.6.
Second.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Jorgens,
Aye.
President Romer,
Aye.
Director Hassler.
Aye.
Press item 9.5.
Yes, on item 9.5 is the approval of a deputy fire chief right to return side letter, which I support. There's only one piece of it I would just wanted to bring to the board's attention and the chief's attention too, is under item number 3 under there. It says that should the rights be exercised at the time that there is not a battalion chief vacancy, the district will fund the 40-hour training battalion chief position until such time as there is a battalion chief vacancy. And my only comment would be why only the 40-hour training battalion chief position? It might be up to at that point, if that should occur, I mean, maybe we want to add some language where we're not, it doesn't have to be the 40-hour training battalion chief position. So I would just want to perhaps add something that would say fund the 40-hour training battalion chief position or other position as deems needed or something.
Board can always make that change later if they want to, if they're adding something, adding a possibility, because it wouldn't be, you know, as long as it's letter, you know, if it's to their benefit and we want to do it, then we could do it at that point.
Side letter.
Yeah, I mean, I would
That's
just
fine.
emphasize,
This doesn't,
Right.
we wouldn't have to do this.
No, it doesn't mandate that you do this.
Doesn't
I mean,
mandate.
the issue is, I mean, we would at a minimum have to do that. So it's sort of a minimum, but just to be clear, this is a bargained side letter. Admittedly, it's very small units of 3 people, but you know, this was the agreement that we reached with them. So that's what's here. That said, as with any MOU or any side letter, you know, if we come back later and propose something different and the parties agree, then we're good.
That's all I wanted to just kind of get out there. I mean, I have no problem with the rest of it, so that's okay. Long as we can change it later. Okay. I'm fine with that. Can I talk about 9.6? Okay, 9.6. 9.6 has to do with establishing contracting procedures for special services. And my comment is that we're giving the new office specialist person, as well as the prescribed fire program manager, some authority for contracting. And so, you know, I have the fire marshal here and administrative services manager. I'm asking the office specialist, I mean, they're on this list. They can contract any amount less than $10,000. That seems pretty high for the office specialist position and I would just like to hear why they need that.
So the office specialist, emergency preparedness, that was previously the emergency preparedness coordinator. Okay, which reclassified that now to this office specialist full-time position. So that emergency preparedness has a budget of $40,000 for supplies and services, of which $10,000 is for prescribed fire supplies, and then the other $30,000 is for other emergency preparedness things. So regularly that person is purchasing supplies. Just in today's accounts payable that I reviewed. They have to approve. They had a reimbursement for volunteers. They had uniform reimbursements for some of the comm support volunteers. So they're regularly approving purchases. So
They go through, does everything go through you? Or could they just approve $9,999?
right, so they're authorized up to $10,000. You know, they would be if this is approved by the board. And then it's also reviewed by finance staff as well.
So, okay, so if the office specialist emergency preparedness wants to spend $9,000 on something, does it get approved by somebody else? Has to sign it and review it and?
Well, they would be an authorized purchasing and contracting authority up to $10,000, that position. And then every single expense that comes through the district is also reviewed by finance staff.
Kind of
By but not approved by, in other words.
Correct. So what finance staff is looking for is whether the invoice is there, if it's properly approved, that it's less than 10,000, if that's what the person's authorized for, and that it's properly coded and that there's a budget there. So if those things are there, then it gets paid.
They have a $10,000 signing authority up to their $40,000 budget in a year.
Correct.
Right. That's not.
Okay. I just wanted clarification. And then I also had the same question on the prescribed fire program manager. And I have some other questions about that position. Now I understand what we did. We broke that part off. When I looked at the org chart for our whole organization, I did not see prescribed fire program manager there. Maybe I missed it. If one of you can tell me it's there, I'd like to see it.
So I looked at the org chart. It's in the budget for fiscal year 2025 budget. And so no, that is an oversight that position is not there because while it was being
Wasn't me.
developed.
Okay.
Right.
You'll put it there.
So yes, we'll get that
And
corrected.
so does it go in fire prevention or suppression? Where is it going to be?
Prescribed fire program manager reports directly to the fire chief. Is that correct, Christine? Are they right? Yes, thank you. Okay. So that prescribed fire program manager is reporting to the fire chief. So it'll be off to the side, reporting to the fire chief. And then the office specialist emergency preparedness is reporting now to the deputy fire chief.
And also prescribed fire program manager. I looked at everything I had. I could not find a job description for prescribed fire program manager.
Right, so that's a new position. It was just created as part of the budget process. And so as part of when we went through that, then Christine, and we created a job description. So we do have a job description for that position.
Could we get that next meeting somehow? I can put it on the agenda if you want. I'll just ask to put it on the agenda later.
We can just email it to you, whichever you want.
I'd like to talk about it, so I'll ask later to just have it on the agenda. Okay, that's fine. That's what I had.
I have a 9.6.
Second that.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Jorgens, President Romer,
Aye.
Director Hassler.
Aye.
Item 10.1, draft GASB 75 OPED valuation report as of June 30, 2024, and approval of OPED funding policy.
Good evening, directors. A draft of the district's OPEB actuarial evaluation as of June 30, 2024 has been completed, and the district's OPEB funding policy has been reviewed. At the August board meeting, the board directed use of a discount rate of 6.25%. The draft report has been prepared using 6.25%. I would like to introduce Roger Burton, consulting actuary with GovInvest Incorporated, who will review the draft actuarial evaluation.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go over the GASB 75 report results with you. I believe you have a copy of the report. Marcia, do you want me to share my screen or do you want to tab through it on yours?
If you can share your screen, that would be great.
Let me do that. All right, is this visible to everybody? Okay. We're going to skip through to the parts that I think are most important to the group. There are a lot of exhibits in the report, which are mostly exhibits that are required by GASB or for accounting purposes. So I'll skip over a lot of those, but please let me know if you have any questions about anything on those pages. We're going to start with the accounting summary. On this page, towards the top, you can see the total OPEB liability, excuse me, which is the summary of the top section. And there you can see that last year, the total liability went from 15.2 million to about 15.4 million this year, so a slight increase. For anyone not familiar with this report, it measures the liability to the district for retiree healthcare benefits for their healthcare plan. And it is an estimate of the money that the district would need to have in a trust fund as of the valuation date of June 30th, 2024, in this case, the measurement date, to cover all future retiree healthcare costs. The next section down in the middle there, towards the bottom of the middle section, it mentions the fiduciary net position, which is your trust fund, your assets. And that increased from 3.5 million to 4.6 million. The difference between the assets and liability is your net OPEB liability, your net liability. That decreased from just under 11.7 million last year to just under 10.8 million this year. So you went from 23% funded last year to 30% funded this year due to that decrease. And the decrease was seen by a slight increase in the liability with an even greater increase in assets, And you can see that graphically at the bottom there. Okay, we did use the discount rate of 6.25%. That's what the board recommended. The asset fund managers were recommending, well, they were calculating or estimating rates of returns of like 7.6 or 7.8%. So we feel that 6.25 is a conservative estimate, and we had no problem using that. Any questions on that page? Most of the number breakdowns show the breakdown between the liability that's attributed to the benefits that the active employees earn and then the retirees earn, and then also a projection of future benefits that have not yet been earned but are expected to be earned. Okay. Moving on, this shows the changes from last year to this year on the liability. Each year you add in the service cost, which is the benefits that are earned by the active employees as they work each year. So that's the service cost of $324,000. Then there's an interest cost that was $937,000. Differences between expected and actual experience. Well, each year we project how much you're going to spend in retiree healthcare costs, and then we compare it to what you actually spent. And that difference was $2,200. Then we subtract what you paid out in benefit payments, and we subtract out a implicit subsidy credit. Anyone not familiar with the implicit subsidy, I'll try to do a brief summary. It is an estimate of the cost of the retiree healthcare when those retirees are on the same healthcare plan as active employees, and they're all paying the same premium. Retired firefighters and employees cost more on average than working employees. And therefore, if everyone's paying the same premium, the actives are paying a little bit more and the retirees are paying a little bit less. And you need to record that amount that the retirees are paying in the retiree liability. And that's the implicit subsidy credit. And then there's an offsetting entry for the active so that it balances out overall in your books. But we're just looking at the retiree liability here. So we need to account for that. So add in those 5 changes, and that results in a just under $200,000 increase in the liability for this year. All right. Okay, page 16. What we're looking at here is we're taking the net OPEB liability. These measures were, or these numbers were valued at the beginning of the year. So the first column there shows the historical estimate for the OPEB liability of 11,655,832, and that'll match on that first page I showed you. And you're amortizing amounts according to your fund policy over a closed 20-year period. For the 23-24 year, you were at 13 years left. You know, this current year, you have 12 years left, and then next year you have 11 years left in that amortization period. So we take that OPEB liability and then we amortize it over, 13, 12, and 11 years at your discount rate, 6.25%, factored in with the assumed rate of payroll growth, and we come up with an amortization amount. On the next page, we incorporate that amount into calculating your required contribution. You'll be approving the funding policy. We've continued with the funding policy that's been in place for many years now, which is to contribute 100% of this actuarially determined contribution. So we determine the actuarially determined contribution by adding in the service cost. So you need to put an amount into the fund to cover the benefits earned this year by active employees. And then you need to add in that amortization of the unfunded liability. So we'll keep adding that in until that's paid off. So over the next 11 to 12 years. Then we put in a number for the administrative expense to cover that, and then add interest to all of that to bring it to the end of the year. And that's your ADC. And so that's the fifth line down there, the totals. So it was 1.533 last year. This year it's $560,897. And next year we're estimating it'll be 1,532,000, but we will update that amount in next year's report. Currently, you're paying the retiree benefits outside of the trust, which is accounting wise, it's equivalent to putting the money into the trust and then immediately taking it out to pay the benefits. So that counts as a contribution, that retiree benefit. You're also getting a credit for the implicit subsidy that the active employees are paying towards the liability. So once you take those two numbers out, the difference is what you need to put into the trust fund. So for this year, for 24-25, that number is $428,000, $428,630. Next year, we're estimating it'll be about $405,000. So the sum of those three numbers is your ADC. So that's all I wanted to cover in the report. But again, if anyone wants to or has any questions, please let me know. I did have actually one other exhibit I wanted to show you. So this is a projection of net contributions. And so those numbers that we were just mentioned that you need to put into the trust, those are on the far right, the net district contributions. So you see the 428 for this year, the estimated 405 next year, and you'll see that it grows over the next 11 to 12 years, reaching 800,692. And then that's when you've paid off that net liability. And after that, everything you contribute will just be the service cost, admin, and interest to keep the fund going. That's assuming that you keep paying benefits outside of the trust. At some point, you'll full funding, and you won't need to. You'll need to start taking money out of the trust fund, but you're only 30% funded this year, so that's far off in the future. All right. So now, with that, are there any questions?
Thank you. So I guess we have to have public comment.
We do. So I'm going to take back the screen share.
All right, I'll stop it. All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
We will go ahead and open public comment. And we have one hand raised, Daniel Albana.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dan Albana, a member of MOFD, fire captain here, and also union rep. I just have a quick question as far as you said interest in there, as far as some of the calculations. Does it account for like the returns we get in the market? Was that the same thing? I'm just a little confused. Where we invest this money and we get a rate of return, does that factor into how much we project the payment will be in subsequent years? Do we look back? Do we look forward? I mean, I know there's a discount rate of 6.25, but then there's what we actually earn in the market. So I'm just curious how that plays into it. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So we're using that board approved 6.25% rate of discount rate to do the discounting of the benefit payments back to current, to give you the amount you need to have in a trust fund today to pay those future benefit payments. The asset fund is like on the side. You're not really funding the benefit payments with it. It's like they're two separate things, but you want them to be equal. The asset fund is earning money or interest or whatever you want to think of it as at the rate of return. So if it's earning at this 7.6 or 7.8% that the asset fund managers think it's going to earn, then your assets are going to grow at that faster rate. Your net liability is going to be reduced, and that amortization of the net liability is going to come down. So your ADC and the money you have to put into the trust fund will come down. If that makes sense. So the interest doesn't affect what we expect you're going to pay in benefit payments, but it affects how much money your assets are growing at.
We do not have any more hands raised, and we do not have any in-person public comment.
I move that we approve our longstanding policy, which is to fully fund the OPEB liability.
Seconded by Danziger. Director Danziger.
Aye.
Director Jorgens.
Aye.
President Romer.
Aye.
Director Hassler.
Aye.
Item 10.2, establish interim fire chief recruitment ad hoc committee and appoint 2 directors.
Fire Chief Winokur notified the board that he is ending employment with the district in December 2024. Consistent with past practice, when the prior fire chief retired in 2017, the board appointed an interim fire chief. Per District Policy 11, the board shall appoint an ad hoc committee to negotiate the fire chief's contract. Staff recommends the board establish an interim fire chief recruitment ad hoc committee and appoint 2 directors to serve on the ad hoc committee.
For discussion?
Retire?
We can ask.
No offense over there.
I think he's given a very firm answer. He's counting the days. He can.
Yes.
Who wants to be on the committee?
I'll volunteer.
Well, I was about to say, you did a really fine job last time from everything it was prior to my time, but I think you did a really great job on it last time, so.
I would suggest that if Director Hassler is willing to do it, that I think that he'd be a very good addition to to Director Jorgen and his wealth of experience.
I'm happy to do it.
I'm okay with that. No, that's fine. I'm fine.
I guess somebody else probably should make a motion for that.
So let's first go ahead and
Oh,
we'll
okay, sorry,
open public comment.
Right.
And so we did receive one written public comment from Jonathan Goodwin, which was forwarded to the directors and is available on our website. And
I would just like to make a comment on that, is that we have received information that we have had interim fire chiefs before. Battalion Chief Jerry Lee was our interim fire chief for, I think it was approximately 3 months before we hired Chief Winokur. So, and that information was provided, I believe, to Mr. Goodwin as well as the directors to support that. So
it was, and I appreciate Chief Winokur's contributions on that. With that said, I will make the motion to establish an interim fire chief recruitment ad hoc committee and appoint Directors Jorgens and Director Hassler to the ad hoc committee for interim fire chief recruitment.
I will second that.
And so we do have a hand raised while you were making that motion.
Okay, we want to take the comment?
Yes, Vincent Wells.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. Good evening. I'm in Colorado Springs at our fallen firefighter memorial event, but I do want to ask that we have a local 1230 member also involved in the committee for moving forward with who the new fire chief is going to be. So that's my request.
My impression would be we've already chosen who we want the interim fire chief to be, and that's what this committee is going to be doing.
That's my understanding too.
And so all we're doing is negotiating his contract, not the full-time fire chief in the future.
Yeah, my request is that local 1230 has input on who we're offering that opportunity to.
The full-time fire chief or the interim fire chief?
Interim and a full.
Well, I don't think that in the past we have not had input from 1230 on the interim fire chief. We are happy to have, I think we historically have had input on the full-time fire chief.
That's the request that I'm putting out there. And like I said,
If I may,
yeah, I just want to put that out there. We want to be involved in both the selection of the interim and then the long-term process. I would just say me as the local 1230 president, I've been involved in the 6 agencies that we represent, and we've had involvement in all of those processes. So I would ask that we're included and invited to be participants in the selection of the interim as well as the permanent fire chief position.
One just legal comment. I don't have any policy comment, obviously, but on the legal side, you cannot have an ad hoc committee that has somebody outside the board on it from the Brown Act.
Right.
Of course, doesn't stop consultation. I guess the other thing, Vince, just to be clear, because I don't know if you were listening at the early end of the meeting, but the board did select Jeff Isaacs as the interim, so that they have done that. What remains is to negotiate his contract.
Okay, so I kind of feel caught off guard because I've been traveling to our firefighter memorial out here in Colorado Springs. What I would like to make sure that we are a part of is the selection of permanent fire chief is probably the most important part of this, but I don't know what we are already have missed as an opportunity to engage ourselves as far as the process. So my point is, in the past, we've been involved in the process of all the conversations of, hey, what are we going to do in the interim? And what are we going to do in the long term? And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to weigh in on any final or major decisions as it comes to who is going to be the new fire chief or the interim fire chief. So, however, at this point, we can be inserted in the process. That's what our ask is.
And that concludes our 3 minutes.
I think as far as the interim chief, I mean, that's kind of a done deal. And I think in the future, when we get ready for recruitment for permanent fire chief, I think we could consider whatever appropriate position for the union reps to be involved. I don't know what that is, so, but it.
Maybe they were the union reps too, but at least I remember they were senior people in the department.
Okay.
And that's fine. I mean, obviously we'd want to have input.
Okay, and we do not have any more hands raised, and we have a motion on the floor.
My motion stands. I don't know that I need to remake it, but I'm not changing any of the language in it. For procedural and legal reasons, I think we need to move forward.
Did I second it already? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now we just
Yeah,
need
I think we're ready. We're ready for a vote.
roll call.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Jorgen?
Aye.
President Romer?
Aye.
Director Hassler?
Aye.
Item 10.3, Quarter 4 Financial Update and Budget Review.
Fiscal year 2024 is complete. All accounting entries have been made and financial results for the fiscal year are final. The original budget adopted in June 2023 projected a general fund deficit of $633,000. The actual results through the end of the fiscal year is a general fund surplus of $2.4 million. The next slide explains what generated the surplus of $2.4 million. On the left side, general fund revenue exceeded budget $1.5 million. Property tax revenue exceeded budget $603,000, primarily from supplemental property tax, which are taxes derived from the reassessment of property following a sale or completion of new construction. The district received $672,000 in total in supplemental tax revenue for the fiscal year. Investment earnings exceeded budget $547,000 due to increased interest rates and due to board direction to move investments into higher yielding U.S. Treasury bills. Ambulance revenue exceeded budget $327,000 due to reduced write-offs. Strike team revenue was under budget $142,000. On the right-hand side of the slide, expenditures were less than budget in salaries, strike team overtime, retirement costs, and operating expenses. One category that exceeded budget was overtime. Next slide highlights the larger variances in operating expenses, as you can see listed on the slide. Also, all transfers for the fiscal year were completed. The district started the fiscal year with $18.1 million in general fund unrestricted fund balance. On the next slide, please. The surplus increased the fund balance to $20.4 million, which exceeded the fund balance policy minimum of 40% and exceeded the policy goal of 50%. The amount was 58.53% at the end of the fiscal year. Note the red line increased significantly in 2024 because the board increased the minimum fund balance level from 17% to 40%. Next slide. The Capital Projects Fund ended the year with a surplus of $3 million, primarily due to a transfer in from the general fund of $3.1 million. So fund balance in the Capital Projects Fund totals $11 million. Debt Service Fund had a balanced budget. The Tunnel East Bay Hills Fuel Break Fund ended the fiscal year with a surplus of $297,000 and fund balance of $348,000. Finally, the Fire Risk Reduction Grant Fund, which funds 2 fuels mitigation specialists, had a surplus of $35,000 and fund balance of $36,000. This is the last slide, and there have been 4 quarterly updates this year. This concludes the presentation.
Comments from the board? Discussion, board discussion.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I just had, thank you for this report, and I think we're looking pretty good. I just have a couple of questions. Professional services, I mean, we just use that category. Is there any way to in the budget going forward to let us know what those professional services are? I mean, it just says there's at least 2 places that it just says professional services, and one of them is kind of near, I mean, I don't know how it appears on the budget. I don't know if that's what they're related to, or if it's, I just don't know what those are.
Right. Yes, most of it is for the auditors. The other thing is like the actuary, Mr. Burton, that you just saw, that's other professional services. But I can provide more detail in future reports.
Just going forward, I mean,
Yes.
yeah. And then the other comment is, in fiscal year 23-24, we did not have a volunteer recognition event. And, I imagine it takes some staffing to do that, and, it might have been difficult, but going forward, now that we have the new office specialist, if that's going to be one of her responsibilities, I don't know, but I'd sure like to see that. I think it's a good event, and I think it's important to recognize some of our partners and our volunteers. And I think it is in the budget. We didn't use that expenditure in this past fiscal year. I think it's in the budget for the next fiscal year, so I hope we use it. That's all.
We will go ahead and open public comment. And we do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment. Item 10.4, consider options for district investments held in section 115 trust with public agency retirement services.
At the August board meeting, the board directed a future agenda item to explore alternative investment strategies for the district's money in the pension and OPEB trust at PARS. PARS offers a directed trustee option, which would allow the district to self-direct the investments or choose a different registered investment advisor other than PFM. If the board changes to the directed trustee option, the district would be responsible for the fiduciary liability instead of a registered investment advisor. The district could buy an S&P 500 mutual fund. At the August board meeting, the board requested an analysis of potential earnings, which I completed using the Vanguard 500 Index Admirable Fund, using the district's investment balances at June 30 of the last 5 years. And that's what you see on the top part of the slide here. The analysis is included as attachment A. The top of the slide shows the differences in the investment returns between returns the district earned compared to the Vanguard 500 Admiral Fund. The bottom of the slide shows how the trustee fees the district pays would also decrease if the board decides to change to the directed trustee approach. 2 other items I would like to highlight is that the California Government Code limits permissible investments for all public funds outside a Section 115 trust. For public funds within a Section 115 trust, investment options are unlimited. Staff request board direction regarding district investments held in the section 115 trust with PARS. This concludes the staff report.
Board discussion?
One question. So our investment right now is in a 115 trust. It's just managed by, it's a managed fund within it. And the suggestion is the Vanguard fund, which is in 115, or not the suggestion, just the illustration is Vanguard within the 115 trust.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know who's quote managing that investment, the board or the PARS folks. Right. So I guess the way I would look at these numbers, you know, in the last 5 years, we've had one of the more major financial challenges that we've had in the last 100 years. So, you know, we had one in 2008, we had 1929, which I guess was still less than 100 years ago. There was the 2001 to 1992. There were, you know, a few of things where the market went down, you know, 20% or 25%. And I would note that the pension, you know, theoretically, the folks that are managing our money currently are earning a return, and they think it's a, you know, a well-diversified fund that hopefully, you know, kind of minimizes the downsides, but also puts a little bit of a damper on the upsides. And the challenge I have is if you look at the returns of the pension, you know, the columns 3 and 4, there isn't a case where we didn't outperform, and even on the downside, it didn't go down as much as theirs did, which is contrary to what should have happened if theirs is supposed to be less risky than the S&P 500 would be. So being the Vanguard return column. And if you look at the difference in rate of return, you know, it averages, I don't know, something like 6% over that 5-year period is how much extra we would have earned. And the last column says that it's roughly $3 million in you know, in those two funds over that 5-year period. That builds a really big buffer in case anything does happen that's different in the S&P 500 versus the managed fund. So, you know, and by the way, did this include the difference in the fees they charge down below? Because there's another, I don't know, 10.1% down there, which is kind of rounding error. What are the huge numbers they have up above that they're not earning? Were those numbers already included in the math you did? The difference in the bottom part of the chart?
Difference in the fees.
Right. Okay. So the fees, let's see, the investment return is gross of fees.
Gross of fees. That means
So
not included.
before the fees, right?
So in other words, these numbers would have been even bigger if we would have also included, which it would have been hard to do, by the way. But directionally, they would have been 1/10 of a point higher, which is not much relative to the 6% that we are actually different.
But I would also note that these are on an annual basis, not a compound basis.
Right. So it would have been even more than $3 million.
It would have been more because we
money on our $3 million. So I guess the way I would look at that is I sort of am reminded of Warren Buffett's advice to his wife, which was, you know, take my $100 billion when I die and put it in the S&P 500 and forget about it, because he recently earned, I think, $1 million that he gave to charity by betting the best money managers that are out there if they could beat the S&P 500 for 10 years in a row. And the answer was they didn't. So, you know, that's with the best managed funds in the country. So I don't think we're taking any more risk. And according to this, we're taking less risk with this. And we're earning, you know, millions of dollars more by taking what I would call less risk than having our current managers manage it for us. So I don't think that there's any downside in having, and the other big difference between our particular trust, not the OPEB trust necessarily, but certainly the pension trust doesn't have regular outflows. You know, Cicera and those folks have, and most pension funds have, you know, every year they pay a certain amount of their, you know, out to the pensioners, and they receive money from the people who are currently working and from us. And in this case, our pension trust anyway is a long-term, you know, rainy day fund, if you want to think of it that way. If something horrible happens in the marketplace, and before we have to, you know, lay people off, we would have money to be able to pay their pension, you know, the pension obligations that we, the entity, have to Cicera. So it's a long-term fund. It's not a short-term fund. It has a lot of money in it already, and it's going to have even more money in it because there's a huge unfunded pension liability. But I think it's compelling to me with these kinds of numbers to not use a managed fund or manager.
Based on these numbers, I would agree. Sorry, they said there's a risk. I mean, it's just we're just accepting the risk for investing our own money, which is right now shows as a negative risk, right? Like we actually underperformed because we used somebody to take the risk.
Board would be assuming, the district would be assuming the fiduciary liability is how they term it.
Of that anyway. I mean, the answer is we have to come sooner or later. We have to come up with the money. At this point, we're having to come up with $3 million more than we otherwise would have, which comes out of our budget anyway. So literally, we're having to come up with extra cash every year. And in this case, this year it was 1.292. Almost $1.3 million in extra cash we would have had to come up with eventually to fund our unfunded pension liabilities that we wouldn't have to do if we invested it more appropriately and with less risk. So I don't personally consider that to be a liability. I would argue we're not doing our fiduciary duty.
Hello, this is Director Romer. Is Jonathan Holtzman still there? I think financially it's a no-brainer. I am a little bit concerned with this phrase of we assume the fiduciary liability. What exactly in the practical world does that mean? I can't imagine anybody having standing to at some point down the road second guess us in the very unlikely possibility that this turns out to be an anomaly and somehow or another we're seen to have underperformed. Well, I mean, what is the benchmark? Because the benchmark is the Standard & Poor's.
Yeah, and
what's the bottom line? I mean, we have a directors and officers liability policy. Is there any conceivable world in which somebody gets the ability to have standing to sue, sues the directors, and we are found somehow liable for having made this decision and assumed this liability?
Well, let me say a couple of things about that. First of all, anytime you start a sentence with, is there any conceivable world in which?
Yeah. And I asked that question bearing in mind that if I'd asked if there was any conceivable world in which someone could be found that he's practicing for a dipsy run and sprains his ankle and is found to be in, what the courts do can be beyond the absurd. So we all have to be aware of this, and that's the one thing we have to factor in here, right?
What I would like to do, if it's okay with the board, is I would like to prepare a memo, short memo, I hope, that lays out this issue and looks at it in a thoughtful way. I think that will be important in any event. To show that you have exercised, good judgment, by asking the question you've just asked, having an erudite answer, which I am not prepared to give you tonight. I think there are sort of a couple of subcomponents as well to that. So I think you raise a good one, which is, who would have standing and how would that work? I think a second piece of it is, to what extent does it increase, potential liability for the board? And I hear the factual arguments here, which are, which seem very sound to me on the face of it, but I think it would be a smart thing for you to ask for that memo anyway, if you're going to do this, and so that we have it all laid out.
I agree. And, Director Jorgens, he is correct. I'm aware of that bet that Warren Buffett made. It's a very strong argument for taking the position that I think Director Jorgens is suggesting we take. And I'm heavily leaning in favor of taking that leap because frankly, I think that is our fiduciary obligation. Even if we pretend to pass off the fiduciary obligation to some intermediate which underperforms, isn't that a violation of our fiduciary obligation?
Yeah, Director Romer, I think you're dead right about one thing. You have a fiduciary obligation, and you are exercising it at this point by giving the money to these folks to manage it. I mean, yes, they have fiduciary. You have yet another person on the hook, so to speak, but it doesn't change the fact that the board has a fiduciary obligation in this setting, and that does include an assessment of what the risks are, but also what the benefits are.
Right. So in the same way that we've laid a record in some of our previous issues that ended up in litigation, I think having you spend a reasonable amount of time laying that record for us puts us in the position of being able to make an intelligent judgment, which in at least in my mind, again, it seems to be a no-brainer. But I think we do have an obligation to look at the downside. And I think that should also include, is this the sort of thing that our D&O policy will defend and indemnify us against?
Not only does our D&O policy defend us, so does the district. So.
Yeah, okay, well, but Director Jorgens, don't you think it's worth laying that?
I would say we should direct or request, whatever the word is, our outside counsel to prepare a memo explaining why this would be, a reasonable thing for us to do.
Or not to.
And what the risks are,
and
what our risk is.
And
So
I agree.
Any additional risk, which is not obvious to me there is.
That covers us in order to make the decision, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's a sound idea just from us, again, from the standpoint of showing that you're exercising due caution in how you approach this.
I'd like to put it on next time's agenda then also. Again,
I agree with that.
Prove it. Put it on for approval next time.
Okay.
I would just say, I have no objection to looking at this further or having counsel prepare something for us, but I feel I feel kind of the opposite, that it's our fiduciary responsibility to continue with the discretionary trustee and not be self-directed. Out of 540 clients, only 2 are using that other platform, the directed trustee. I see the numbers that we could do better, but things, just because it's this 5 years, I don't know I know the 500 index has been good, but I don't think I would want to take that responsibility. And also, are we going to ask staff to do this? I mean, this is a whole nother.
One fund investment, all you do is invest in the S&P 500.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to do it right now, but I'm willing to talk about it further.
So I would be interested in having the staff, instead of just looking at our particular money, let's ask the PARS folks for their historical returns for however long they've been in business, 20 years, and see how they compared with the S&P 500 over a longer period of time. That will include the 2008 debacle, for example, as well as the 2020 or 22 debacle. And, that should give us enough of the good times and the bad times, because the market's been really good for some years during that time and really bad in some years.
And as part of this record that we're making, it's not just the fact that Warren Buffett made the bet, but the fact that Warren Buffett researched probably 100 years of comparisons of the indexes to actively managed funds, that formed the basis of the bet he made, which he won.
Right.
I mean, that's all part of the record. I think we need to.
It wasn't an off the cuff bet. He knew the historical precedent for the bet in the first place.
He's been looking at these numbers back at the turn of the the beginning of the 1900s.
Yeah.
He's got 120 years of experience to look at this. And, anyway, I think that if we can get, for a potential return of $3 million over 5 years, it's worth a few $1,000s. Again, I mean, the way the pros and benefits of it's worth having Jonathan Holtzman and the Rennie firm write up a memo on this.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I'm in agreement.
Okay,
We don't want the memo at least. That's good.
right.
We will go ahead and open up public comment. We do not have any hands raised. Item 10.5, authorize insurance brokerage service agreement with Loveland and Smart Insurance Services.
District is a member of the Fire Agency's Insurance Authority, which we call FARA. FARA is a joint powers authority comprised of approximately 94 public agencies. Most of the members are located in California. The district obtains a variety of insurance coverages through FARA, including property, auto, and liability. The district's premium for insurance coverage has increased significantly over the last 5 years. San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District was also a member of FARA and recently left FARA and obtained insurance coverage through a company called VFIS. VFIS provides insurance products to emergency services organizations across the United States, so they're not solely focused in California. Unlike FARA, property risk is spread across the U.S. San Ramon Valley Fire used Loveland and Smart as their insurance broker during their process. I asked if we can go directly to VFIS without using an insurance broker, and I was informed that we cannot. VFIS does not work directly with districts and will only work with clients who utilize a broker. The services Loveland and Smart will provide to the district is they will complete the application process to 3 different insurance companies, so we'll have 3 different quotes. They'll provide schedules and values of all property, equipment, and vehicles. They'll review and analyze the district's 10-year loss history and current open claims. And they'll compare coverage, limits, deductibles, and services and provide advice to the district. The cost for Loveland and Smart to complete these services for the period January 1, 2025 through June 30, 2025, so a 6-month period, is $6,000. And I wanted to point out that it was with $6,000 does not require board approval. The staff has authority for that. However, I wanted to get board direction before I proceeded with leaving FARA, because if the board's not interested in doing that, then obviously we wouldn't want to go down this path. Finally, FARA has restrictive requirements for agencies that want to withdraw. The district is required to provide 12 months advance notice of withdrawal and pay a 10% premium. Staff recommends the board authorize staff to enter into an insurance brokerage service agreement with Loveland and Smart in the amount of $6,000. This concludes the staff report.
Only for not giving him 12 months notice.
We have Mr. Holtzman's going to look into this for us, but my understanding on reading it is that we would still have to pay FARA the full premium, and we'd have to pay the new insurance company. So you'd basically be paying twice.
Or they know what the premium is if we're not at the 12-month period. I assume they send us a notice every so often of what that year's premium is going to be. How would we know what it is?
So the premium is done annually by FARA. They hire an actuary, and the actuary does a big actuarial evaluation. And that's the point of the whole 12 months. That's the theory, is because they basically take all the members and they spread the risk based on your claims and so forth and figure out how much you have to pay. So that's why they require this 12 months. So it's an annual premium.
What the savings were, or what San Ramon?
Yes, Loveland and Smart, they project that they'd save us 20% of our premium. Let me look.
169,000. So it's going to be, $35,000.
I support this. I mean, $6,000, and we'll see where we stand.
What percentage of the new contract do they get as their fee as a broker?
I don't know. I just know what we paid them.
Most insurance brokers, I mean, I just went out and got much larger policies than this that had premiums that were 10 times this. And brokers don't charge anything for doing the research.
$6,000 is?
No, I'm just saying that
they're going to get a percentage.
They assume that, if we're going to be like San Ramon, we go out and they're going to make, they often make at least 10% on the policy. So they're going to make, $16,000 the first year or $17,000. And usually they keep doing, it's an annuity for them. So most people don't charge the six, not that I'm overly worried about $6,000, but why, if they think they're going to be doing a good job and they're going to be earning a nice, commission later on, why are we paying them up front? Maybe we have a contract with them that says, hey, we'll pay you the $6,000 if we don't do it. But if we do it, you're going to eat the $6,000 and we're going to pay your commission, or actually the insurance companies pay them their commission. I don't know. I'm not overly worried about it, but it's not traditional in my experience anyway for dealing with very large insurance brokers, including to premiums up to, I don't know, $50 million a year, which I've also negotiated. So, but I'm supportive of doing this regardless. But I really would like to look into, if we're going to save $35,000, let's see what happens if what the terms are for breaching our contract.
I think we can certainly ask them. I have no idea. I doubt Glorianne does either. But the the more logical thing would, I suppose, be what you suggested, which is to say, look, if we do this and we don't use you, okay, fine, we'll pay you $6,000. But if we do use you, we want it credited to.
So I said,
yeah. I said that. I was saying I was agreeing with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can. We'll. I guess I would leave it this way. If you're approving the item, that we will make that inquiry, but is your direction, regardless of the answer to that inquiry, we should go forward?
Yes.
Okay.
That would have been my proposal. So I guess we need to have a motion for this, or are you just telling us this and it's something you want to go do and you want us to just shake our heads and say, yes, it's a good idea?
It was for board direction, and so I have the direction that I need. Thank you.
Go ahead and open public comment. We do not have any hands raised. Item 10.6, adopt resolution 2413, authorizing a service contract amendment for legal services with Downey Brand in the amount not to exceed an additional $75,000.
Members, so as you're aware, we are in the middle of litigation in the Sandy Pearson matter, a CEQA challenge to our fuel break ordinance. The case is moving forward through the courts. We're anticipating essentially a trial, although it's a trial on paper, in February of next year. We have engaged in a number of activities that have taken a little bit more time than we had expected. One is the preparation of the record, which our firm has assisted with as well, and also settlement discussions with the other side, and a variety of other matters that have taken a little bit more time than we expected. So we are at the point where the initial amount of money that the board allocated for this contract, which is not to exceed $95,000, is about to be exhausted. Essentially has been. We've received the bill that would take us there, right, Glorianne? So we're requesting that an additional amount of not to exceed $75,000 to continue forward with the litigation.
Well, I just think it's unfortunate that Ms. Pearson has sued us and that we have to do this, but important that we do I know we've already amended our original ordinance, and it's unfortunate we have to do this, but I support it.
I agree. I think it's an important pillar in our fire prevention efforts to make our community safer. And we just have to go through with it.
I agree as well.
That makes four of us.
We will go ahead and open public comment. We did receive one written public comment from Jonathan Goodwin, which was forwarded to the directors and is available on our website. And we do not have any hands raised.
item 10.6 as it's written.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Jorgens.
Aye.
President Romer,
Aye.
Director Hassler.
Aye.
Committee reports. Is having a meeting next Tuesday, on September 24th.
And the ad hoc committee for the joint fire prevention with the city of Orinda did have a meeting shortly after our last board meeting with the city council members from Orinda, and it was as usual, a very productive meeting. I think we specifically the chief talked a lot about the zone zero and the background and the data that supports the idea of increasing that from 2 feet to 5 feet, which I think the state is preparing to have some rules about also, and certainly the insurance industry believes is critical. And so they were very supportive of the idea of having a joint three-way between Moraga's town council and the Orinda City Council and the MOFD board have the tri-agency meeting. I think it's October 21st. Where is it again?
Here.
It's here. Okay, so that's great. And I think that will be very productive because I think the community really needs to understand, this group thought that the community really needs to understand what the impact of having that zone, the 5-foot zone zero really is. It's going to be something that's going to be really hard for people to understand. I know my wife being one of those. And so just to make it personal, but I'm sure she is not by far the only one that's going to have significant issues with the landscaping and what it's going to do. But at the same time, it's what the insurance industry is going to be demanding from all of us at some point, depending on where you live. And so it's something we need to have a robust discussion about and an education process. And this is, hopefully a very good first step to see what the community's appetite is for this, so that we know whether we should be modifying our, I guess it's now an ordinance, about what our zone zero looks like. That was really the most important thing that got discussed, in my opinion. Mike, you can tell me if you have anything.
I agree. I think it's well stated. I don't have that much to add. Craig.
That was it.
We can go ahead and open public comment. We do not have any hands raised. Go to future agenda items.
Talked about one already or maybe two, I think. You said you had one.
Yeah, well, I had the one that I mentioned earlier, but this is appropriate time. I would like to have an agenda item. I'd like to have the job description for prescribed fire program manager and also the revised org chart, so I could, you can include it for the two new positions. I know we already got the job description for the office specialist, but I'd like to see the org chart where they fit and the description for the prescribed.
That's Dennis Rain, by the way. Okay, if failing anything else, I move we adjourn.
We will first open public comment on
sorry.
future agenda items. And we do not have any hands raised.
In the funds that we have as the ARC goes, like the OPEB funds, et cetera, I think we talked about this last year, as we start to meet our investment goals, if we should start thinking about a policy as to what would happen in that case.
At the moment, we don't have a policy for how and when, or what would trigger taking money out of those. And I think that would be something we should address. I agree. We should put that on the next agenda, is developing a policy for that.
Are there any materials in particular that you would like for that session?
And draft of what would be reasonable rules to have, or not rules, reasonable considerations, or to what a reasonable policy could be. And again, we can disagree on it or change it during the meeting, but at least we have something to start with. So I would say, for example, that it should be sort of, I think the initial discussions back when we formed it was, it's a a source of funds of last resort for, you know, if things are freezing over and contrary to global warming, and we don't want to lay off people, for example, that we want to be able to use the funds from that to pay our obligations to, or some portion of our obligations to Cicera. But other than that, it should be, and once it gets fully funded, we fully fund our unfunded pension liability, then we don't need to keep funding this thing. So it doesn't, and it's going to be earning money. So we could have some kind of a cap. I think often things like this are capped at maybe 110%, and everything after that just stays in the general fund and we don't keep funding it. So, and we can even have money come out of it. If we have big earnings, we could give that money back to the general fund so we don't overfund it. Those are thoughts I can say, variables to think about anyway. How's that?
Well, I assume the direction would be to put this on for direction to staff. So,
Yes.
because we're kind of at the formative stage here.
Yep.
Yeah, to get started.
Well, not necessarily for approval, just for brainstorming and discussing.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
I will second.
The time is 8:47. Director Danziger,
Aye.
Hassler,
Aye.
Director Romer,
Aye.
and Director Jorgens.
Aye. And
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Hey.
That's great.